5FC. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
And does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin tonight? Skynet. This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DDRC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come now. This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control, that would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency, which is, in case you hadn't guessed, 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Second speed echo link are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or lucky echo link node 37247. Tonight's topic, astronomy charts. Pictures and live audio video links are available online. Go to w5fc.org right now for a complete list. Also, remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, What's Up? It's a new feature, but it's an old feature, having to do with what you can see in the sky this week. A featured constellation or object, recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and the 73 round. We may or may not get to all of those segments. Just depends on how much material we have here. Okay, let's go with short time check-ins, round one, short time. You'd like to come to the net this evening, please come now with your call sign name and your location. Short time only.
This is November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Alan. Short time.
KG5 Zulu India X-ray, Joe and Wally. All right, let me get those two short time check-ins. I've got N5WOI, William over in Allen, welcome back. And KG5 Zulu India X-ray, Joe over in Wiley. Thank you for joining us, I think for the first time. I'll now take general check-ins. If you'd like to join us over at our general check-ins, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Mike, and Richardson. This is November 5, Alpha Bravo Alpha, Andre and Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville. This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Linden DeSoto.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas. This is Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert, Richardson, Texas.
Alan and Dallas.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Quebec, Delta, Quebec, Eric and Garland. This is Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. This is Alpha Charlie 9, Kilo Victor, Romy, Grapevine.
This is
All right, I'm going to hold up there. I'm going to need a few fills here. There were a couple of doubles, and I missed a couple of people entirely. Let me give you who I have here. I got KF5JHA, in Mesquite, KG5P, Mike Richardson, N5AVA, Andre Dallas, KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill, Fox Branch, KC5OZT, Miss Kelly Louisville, my neighbor, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto, KG5EIU, David and Paul, good seeing you today, AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. There was another station. If you know you came after Robert, I will add you to the list, otherwise I'll get you on the next round. That may be difficult to do since there are 11 people. If you think you came after Robert, AA5AH, please come down. That's okay, that was pretty complicated. I'll get you on the next round. You'll not hear your call and we'll pick you up then. KF5QDQ, Eric in Garland, NT5TM, Tony, Dallas, AC9KV, Romy and Grapevine. And then there was one station that says this is, and then there was silence in Plano. Now that one I can pick up. So if you were the Plano station, please come with your call sign and name, and I already got your location.
This is Kilo Echo 5, Echo November, Eric in Plano.
All right, KE5EN, Eric in Plano, you are the guy. I'll take additional check-ins. I know I missed at least one, maybe two of you. Please come down. well, that was a surprise. I'm sure there was a double. Maybe it resolved itself. Okay, I'm going to go over to Echolink, and then I'll come back to regular check-ins. Over on Echolink, I'll give you extra time. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign name where you're transmitting from. If you're unable to do audio, just plug into the chat window that you're there, and I'll get you in. Echolink only. I'll give you extra time.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey J near Weatherford.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Tango Hotel Bravo, Brent in Henrietta, Texas.
This is November 5, Yankee Echo Oscar, Stephen, San Antonio.
All right, let me get those 4 check-ins I was able to get. KC5BZW, J near Weatherford, KFI-THB, Brent in Henrietta, and I did get to Michael, KI5CPN, Charlie Papa November, somewhere in ether, I'm not sure where you're at, but I've got you in. N5YEO, Stephen, long time check-in out of San Antonio, thank you. All right, I'll take any check-ins from anywhere, any place. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come down with your call sign name where you're transmitting from.
Here is Kilo Mike 6 Alpha Bravo. Name is Mike. Transmitting from Southern California via a remote rig in Richardson, Texas. Is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India WB4MFI Ted Dallas Low Power. Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Couple. Okie dokie, got 3 more check-ins here. I've got KM68B, Mike, via remote. In South California, by the way, wherever that rig is, the signal is excellent. WB4MFI at Dallas, low power. Welcome back, K5JDW, John, in his winter home here in Capel, Texas. All right, we'll come back and do additional check-ins later on. I think that's good enough for now. So let's see, do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? They can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come out. November Tango 5, Tango Left. NT5TM, Tony, go ahead. Thank you, Tom.
Tom. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a night of nets. That means this is not the last net of the evening. We have the Afterglow movie discussion coming up at 10:30 p.m. We're going to be talking about the fairest of them all, a fan-made Star Trek episode, a follow-up on the famous episode Mirror, Mirror. You know, the one where you could tell that certain characters were evil because they had goatees. Looking forward to a great Skynet tonight and a great discussion for the Afterglow. This is NT5TM.
Wow, that was quick. Yeah, I got something on that as well in a minute. Anyone else?
Kilo Golf 5, Papa.
KG5P, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I gave some raw information out on the TechNet earlier this evening. This is about the eclipse. I was one day early. The total lunar eclipse will be on January 20th, which is a week from Sunday, and it begins at 10:41 p.m. The total begins, and the partial, of course, is before, and the total ends at 11:43. The AccuWeather says it should be clear and cold. The National Weather Service, they don't forecast that far ahead. They don't want to stick their necks out. But right now, it looks like it's a go for the eclipse. And that's Sunday night, week from Sunday. Back to net, KG5B.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Mike. Does anyone need any fills? Very good. Let me go ahead and I'll give tonight's Afterglow info. I think we've got quite a bit of information this evening, so I'm going to skip the usual repeats. So, tonight's Afterglow info. Listen carefully. Spock looked into the window. His goatee looked much better after good Captain Kirk from the other universe suggested he used a small dab of Grecian Formula 4004 in the hair follicles. He was more sinister and menacing, with a darker shade of dark black. This would be an interesting day, Spock thought. Evil Kirk had returned to the evil Enterprise to lead the evil crew of said evil starship. But what was worse, it was Spock's evil annual review. Evil Kirk was pretty upset about the whole alternate universe thing. This whole day wasn't going to be pretty. So join us tonight at 10:30 for the fan sequel to the episode Mirror, Mirror called Fairest of Them All. If you saw it, or you're going to see it while you play hooky from this net, it's actually pretty good for a fan production. Okay, let's see here. Let's go ahead and move on to the second section here called the Texas Astronomical Society events, where and when you can look through a telescope. I know I got a couple of folks checked in. Do you have anything for us this evening? I suspect that tonight's Star Party was canceled due to clouds. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring on TAS? Please come now. I thought not. I'll just give you this blurb. Meetings are held on the fourth Friday of every month at the University of Texas at Dallas. Campus in Richardson. The meetings begin at 7:30 in the Science Learning Center of the SLC on campus. You can park in lots H, I, and J. Park anywhere else on the campus could result in a ticket. If you want to find out more about Texas Astro, they've got observing parties usually every Saturday night unless it's overcast like it is today. They have guest speakers and members, slideshows, Constellation of the Month, items for sale, you name it. You can go to their website, which is texasastro.org, and get all the information as well as looking at their activities calendar, which provides everything that the club does, including some of their special interest groups that they have, like telescope making and beginning astronomy observing. he's out there, or if anyone else has anything for the National Space Society events and activities, please come now. Okay, I thought not, so we're just blowing through all these announcements. Let's go ahead and go to our discussion topic of the evening. Mike, KG5P, has offered up to do a multi-part series on the story of quantum mechanics with tonight, The Nature of Light. And this is a multi-part series. This is part one of that series. So if you would like to follow along, Mike has provided some links. If you want to see some visual links to help you, since radio is pretty bad at video, you can go to w5fc.org or the usual resources that you already know. But that's the one place, and follow along. Mike, KG5P, the net is yours.
Okay. K5ICX, and the net's KG5P. I'm going to start my timer going right here so I don't get too long-winded. Okay. To put everything in context, I'm certainly not an expert on this topic, and even the experts don't claim to be experts. But I'm just an innocent hobbyist, and I find this topic utterly fascinating, and so I hope to share it with you. That is, if I don't put you to sleep, that is. Okay, I'm going to start off by a little intro, and one of the most famous researchers in quantum mechanics is the late Richard Feynman. Okay, and Richard Feynman, who was won the Nobel Prize in physics on this topic, was once asked by a Caltech faculty member to explain why spin 1/2 particles obey the Fermi-Dirac statistics. Rising to the challenge, he said, "I'll prepare a freshman lecture on it." But a few days later, he told the faculty member, I couldn't do it. I couldn't reduce it to the freshman level. That means I don't really understand it. So I'm not going to try to give you too much information here, because if I do, I probably don't understand it, and it wouldn't make any sense anyway. Another quote attributed to Richard Feynman is this: "If you think you understand quantum mechanics, then you don't understand quantum mechanics." Now, it's debatable whether Richard Feynman ever said that, but he certainly agreed with it. There is a quote that you can attribute to him that says, "I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics." But this original quotation that you hear associated with in my time might have really originated with Niels Bohr, who also did a lot of work in the field. The thing about quantum mechanics is it's totally anti-intuitive. I mean, it's taken our species since the beginning of time until just relatively recently, most of our lifetimes, to come up with these concepts, because they just totally fly in the face of common sense. They really do. I'm going to list a number of these things that fly in the face of common sense. And I know Chaz is listening, so, Professor Havey is listening, so I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, which I very possibly could be. So one of these phenomena is the particle wave duality of light. And I'll talk about more than that in a minute. We have this thing called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle that basically says you can know, say, the momentum of a particle, which is physicists find momentum is the mass times its velocity of a particle, or you can determine the position, which can't do both at the same time. And it's not because we're not smart enough to, or not because our equipment isn't accurate enough. Nature does not allow it. And this uncertainty principle appears throughout quantum mechanics. There's the quantum superposition concept. It's sometimes called symmetry, sometimes referred to as the eigenstate. Now we know from our experience in the macro world that you can't put something can't be in two different places at the same time. I mean, it's one or the other, but it can't be both. Well, quantum superposition says yes, it can. You can have the same entity in two different positions at the same time. Again, totally counterintuitive. There's the famous Schrodinger's cat experiment, which is kind of an analogy. And I don't think it's a very good one, but it's always referent. When you talk about quantum superposition, Schrodinger's cat also, the mind experiment always gets into the discussion. I mean, it's a cat that's both alive and dead at the same time. Well, how can that be? Well, the Schrodinger's cat is just an attempt to explain quantum superposition. Another quantum superposition object.
This wouldn't be a YouTube channel without a cat video. So without further ado, we present Schrodinger's cat. I'm sure you've heard some version of this famous thought experiment. You put a cat in a bunker with some unstable gunpowder that has a 50% chance of blowing up in the next minute, and a 50% chance of doing nothing. The gunpowder is Einstein's version. Schrodinger preferred poisonous gas. But whatever. So until we look in the bunker, we don't know whether the cat is dead or alive. And when we do look, it is either dead or alive. So if we repeat the experiment enough times with enough cats and bunkers and gunpowder, we'll see that half the time, Kitty survives, and half the time, Kitty goes viral. The quantum mechanical interpretation is that before we look, the cat is in a superposition. It's both dead and alive. And our active looking forces nature's decision. So our curiosity kills the cat. But what about the cat's perspective? Well, the cat either sees the gunpowder explode or not. So inside the bunker, we actually have these two possibilities. The powder explodes and the cat sees it explode, or the powder doesn't explode and the cat doesn't see it explode. There's no option, the powder explodes and the cat doesn't see it explode. So the cat's reality becomes entangled with the outcome of the experiment. And it's our observation of the experiment that forces nature to collapse to one option or the other. But we're like the cat too. Either the cat dies and we see it dead, or the cat lives and we see it alive. So who's observing us to force nature to collapse to one reality? Or do both possibilities happen in parallel within a larger multiverse? This collapsing to one reality problem is one of the biggest unanswered questions in quantum physics. So for Kitty's sake, can I have answer, please?
Experiments right now where they've actually produced chips that can run small amounts of qubits, in the laboratory. Okay, another thing we come across is what's known as quantum entanglement. It's a strange property that some people believe can cause faster than light transmission.
Consider throwing a ball straight into the air. Can you predict the motion of the ball after it leaves your hand? Sure, that's easy. The ball will move upward until it gets to some highest point. Then it'll come back down and land in your hand again. Of course, that's what happens, and you know this because you have witnessed events like this countless times. You've been observing the physics of everyday phenomena your entire life. But suppose we explore a question about the physics of atoms, like what does the motion of an electron around the nucleus of a hydrogen atom look like? Could we answer that question?
Instantly know that the opposite spin is going to be opposite to what you measured. Now, Einstein had a big problem with that because it violates his special theory of relativity. And he may be right, or he may be wrong. Even if there is quantum entanglement that occurs like this, can we really transmit information? And that's yet to be seen. Einstein called it a spooky action at a distance. And we still don't know if he's right or wrong, but it appears he may be wrong. Okay, another phenomena is quantum tunneling. It's not uncommon for a quantum particle to go through a barrier. In fact, there are even electronic components built on that concept. One's called a tunnel diode, which you don't see very often, but I've seen it used in oscillators and things like that because it exhibits a a negative resistance phenomena. In other words, usually when the voltage goes up, the current will go up as well. Well, the voltage will go up, and the current will go up, and then as the voltage increases, the current goes down for a while, and then as the voltage increases some more, the current starts to go back up again. And so they're actually physical devices, and they've been around since the 60s that use quantum tunneling. Okay, we also have a little beast known as the Pauli exclusion principle, which basically says two particles, such as electrons, cannot occupy the same space. And then we'll get into some further out stuff called quantum teleportation. Okay, I got about 10 more minutes, so I don't want to orchestrate away. So the first thing I want to talk about is the nature of light. And this is how the original concepts of quantum mechanics sort of came into being. Since the times of ancient Greece, many philosophers have inquired into the nature of light. They've asked questions like, where does light come from? What is it? How is it emitted and absorbed? What is it made of? Is it made of particles? Is it a wave? And if it is a wave, it's a wave of what? What does it travel through? And this has been asked over the years, starting with the time of Aristotle. Aristotle believed that the essence of light is essentially white color, and color is made up of a mixture of lightness and darkness. And which wasn't a bad guess, and that held true for thousands of years. Aristotle lived about 360 BC. Okay, much later, this concept of light and darkness was taken up by this German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Now, in the United States, every town has a street called Main Street or Broadway or something like that. And if you've been to Germany, every street has a street called Goethe Street, Goethestrasse. So he was really a revered poet, but he also constructed a theory of light that indeed works. It explains very well the so-called, what he called the primordial phenomenon of colors. This means that colors appear between the boundaries between light and darkness, black and white at boundaries, and the colors appear between the black and white. And this principle is still valid. But the trouble with this is it's really a qualitative explanation, and physicists require that these must be quantitative in order to make predictions. Okay, Goethe's contemporary Isaac Newton had another solution. Newton believed that light was made up of particles, and he separated light into its color components using an optical prism, as we know. He thought light was a flux of colored particles. And at his time, this was not much more than speculation, and he was never really able to prove it. It was just one of his insights, like many of these others, which, a lot of these others turned out to be correct. He believed light is made up of little particles. They obey the same laws of physicals as other masses, like baseballs and planets and things that he could measure, and the particles are so tiny that if you had two intersecting beams of light particles, they would not scatter off each other. Now, Christian Huygens, who was a Dutch physicist and philosopher, he disagreed with Newton, and he stated that light was a wave. And for a long time, there was a heated debate regarding whose theory was correct. It was difficult to believe that light being made of particles could also be a wave. One or the other must be true. Both theories being true at the same time would have to be a logical impossibility. So So in 1803, there was a groundbreaking experiment by Thomas Young, who settled the discussion for at least a century, up until the 1900s. Young performed this well-known double slit experiment, and if you've ever taken college-level physics, that's usually somewhere in the first or second semester. And so it's a very common experiment, very easy to perform, and the results are very easy to see. Okay, Young showed that when light is emitted from a source and allowed to pass through two pinholes in a card interference pattern is observed on the screen on the other side of the card. Now, Tom has a graphic up here. Thomas Young did not have monochromatic light source, which explains the colors. I mean, now we do. And he later changed the two pinholes to two slits. And basically what happens, and this can be done with water waves or anything, this has been well known for many, many years. The two waves, as they pass through the slits or the pinholes, well, my time just ran out, and I'm going to try to wrap this up here in a few seconds, because if I don't, I'll keep going here all night. But as the water waves pass through these two pinholes, they produce interference patterns, causing them to pile up on top of each other or cancel each other out. So you'll have these different nodes where the interference becomes very large and it produces large waves, and then they disappear. And light waves do exactly the same thing. I think at this point right here, I'm going to present the rest of it at another time, because I got way too much time to fill up the net with. So I hope I haven't put you to sleep. We'll get into this a little bit deeper, and I'll have to adjust my presentation so that I don't. I can have broken up in more digestible segments. But what we'll talk about next is how the particle wave theory developed, using kind of a synthesis or a combination of both particles and waves, and get around this intuitive concept that it has to be one or the other. So I'll kick it back to net control, because I know he's got a lot of other stuff to go over tonight. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found this a little bit interesting. It should get interesting as we go further on. So back to net control. Thank you, Tom, KE5ICX, and the net to KG5P.
Thanks, Mike. This is a big topic anyway. Now we'll talk about it later on. I'll get on the horn with you, and we'll discuss maybe different sections and how long and all that, and we'll scope it out that way. This is just our first attempt at this, and appreciate it, and we'll continue doing this, because this is a topic I like as well. So we'll come back to it. This is KE5ICX, and net control for tonight's Skynet. Let's see, we will continue on. Chaz, KF5JHA, our professional astronomer, but amateur radio operator, has graciously taken up this segment, which he calls now What's Up? What's up in the sky, I think is what he means, but it could be what's up anything. So Chaz, KF5JHA, what do you have for us this evening?
Well, good evening, everyone. This is KF5JHA. Just a little bit of background. Back in 2010, got my radio license. This late in 2010. I attended my first meeting of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club in January, I believe, of 2011. And Tom General was the president back then. In fact, he's the president of the club now. And when I introduced myself and told everyone where I worked and what I did, Tom said, "Oh, I need to talk to you right away." At the end of the meeting, we talked, and he was interested in creating a program on air, which I didn't understand, over the net about astronomy. And I said, "Okay, I'm interested." And SEED was formed at that point, and it sprouted about a year later, January of 2012. So we are now in, let's see, 2012, 2013, 2014. Yeah, we've been doing this for a few years, haven't we? So anyway, it's been quite some time, and I've been interested in it for quite a long time. But recently I have been sort of absent, so I thought I'd get back into it and try to help out quite a bit. Tom had asked for some help, and I thought maybe I could talk about what's in the nighttime sky. Every month in the Texas Astronomical Society newsletter called The Spectrum, I write an article called Red, talking about what's in the nighttime sky for the entire month. Just recently I read an article about what's going on in all of 2019, so I thought I'd just go over that a little bit because this is the beginning of 2019. So let's talk about some of the events for the whole year, and then in general about this week. And we even talked about that lunar eclipse that Mike was talking about earlier. So right now there's the moon that's in the sky. But let's talk about what the moon can do. The moon can actually block or cover up things. And also the moon can go into the Earth's shadow. When it blocks the sun, that's an eclipse. When the moon goes into the shadow of the Earth, that's called an eclipse. So solar eclipse is when the moon blocks the light from the sun. In 2019, there's going to be 3 solar eclipses. A partial solar eclipse on January the 6th, that was a few days ago. A total solar eclipse on July the 2nd. And on December the 26th, it's an annual solar eclipse. The 3 solar eclipses are not visible from the Dallas area. But a lunar eclipse is when the moon moves into your shadow. And for 2019, there's 2 lunar eclipses. A total lunar eclipse, again on January 20th, goes into the 21st. And on July the 16th, a partial lunar eclipse. The January 20th, 21st lunar eclipse will be visible from Dallas, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. July 16th, lunar eclipse will not be visible from the Dallas area. Okay, the moon can also block other things other than the sun. It can block planets, and it can block stars. This blocking or occultation, occulting or blocking, happens on a regular basis. And in 2019, the moon will occult the planet Saturn twice and the planet Venus once. Back on January the 5th, around noon local time, the moon actually occults Saturn. During the daytime, yes, around noon, the moon and Saturn are only a couple of degrees away from the sun, and the only way you could have observed this event was with a telescope, but you had to have been very careful to look at the object carefully since the sun was close by. I did not. I was on the road. I was able to observe this occultation of Saturn at that point. The second time in 2019, the moon occult Saturn is on March the 1st. The moon and Saturn will only be about 5 degrees above the western horizon, so you need to make sure you've got a clear western horizon. And you need to probably have binoculars, probably a telescope, because it'll be kind of dim, Saturn will be, but the moon should be easily seen. I'll provide more details on Skynet as we get closer to the March 1st event. Then Venus will be covered by the moon on July the 31st. Again, the planet Venus and the moon will be only a couple of degrees away from the sun. And it's going to be hard to observe this without optical aids. Once again, I'll give you more details about that as we get closer to the July 31st event. For the moon occult stars, what's kind of interesting is when the moon goes through a field full of stars, it's kind of reaching stars. The Hyades, which is the face of Taurus the bull, the moon will go through on February the 13th, March the 12th, June the 30th, August the 24th, September the 19th, November the 13th, December the 11th. So it goes through the Hyades several times. And the moon also goes through the Beehive star cluster M44. That's in the constellation of Cancer on February the 17th, May the 10th, and August the 28th. These are all things we can see here in the Dallas area, and we actually go through these areas of the sky all the time, but we can't see them because sometimes it's happening when the other side of the Earth gets to see it and we don't. What's really interesting that's happening this year is the transit of Mercury. The transit of Mercury occurs when the planet Mercury passes between the Earth and the Sun. It allows us to see Mercury against the Sun's disk. Of course, you're going to have strong optical protection. Remember the eclipse we had back in 2017? If you had some of these binoculars, that'll work. The silver binoculars work. But this was so weird. The sunglasses won't, because Mercury is so small, you probably won't see it against the disk of the Sun. But telescopes with proper optical protection, you'll be able to see it as well. Now, it's been quite some time. It's 2016 when we last saw a transit of Mercury. And we won't see another one here in the North Texas area until the year 2049. So it's going to be a while before we see another one. So you want to see the November the 11th one. Again, that's quite a ways on the road, but write that on your calendar. Meteor showers. Meteor showers happen throughout the year. A lot of minor meteor showers happen almost every week. And you can go to something called the International Astronomical Union and look at over 800 different meteor showers that have been observed and proposed. But there's a few bright ones. The Quadratus is a really good, decent one. That happened just about a week ago, January the 2nd and 3rd. And that happened when we had a waning crescent moon. That was a good time to take a look at it. But we've had a lot of cloudy conditions, so that might not have worked too well. Moons happen on April the 22nd, May the Aquarius, May the 5th and 6th. But you probably are familiar with the Perseus. That's in August, around August 12th and 13th. The Uranus, that happens on October the 20th, 21st. Uranus is famous for their outbursts, but sometimes more than 1,000 meteors an hour. That's on November the 17th and 18th. And Uranus happened in December, around the middle of December. So that's quite a few things that are happening. Throughout the year, quite a few things. This is KFI, JHA, with what's in the sky. So, did I tell you why I named it that? It's the name of the article that I write in the Spectrum newsletter for Texas Astronomical Society. So, what's going on in tonight's sky? Well, the moon, if we could see it through the clouds, is a waxing crescent. Waxing means that it's getting more illuminated each night. So tonight the moon and Mars are in conjunction tonight, and they're only about 5 degrees apart. That conjunction means that they're close together. The moon's phase becomes first quarter just a little bit after midnight on January the 14th. The moon will be close to the bright star in Taurus. That brightest star in Taurus is called Oberon. That's going to be on January the 16th and 17th. By January the 19th, the moon is close to the star Pollux, which is one of the bright stars that make up the heads of Gemini the Twins. And on the night of January 20th, 21st, the moon is full, and we have a total lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse is when the moon goes into the Earth's shadow. There's two parts of the Earth's shadow. A fainter part called the penumbra and a darker part called an umbra. And the moon enters the penumbra on January the 20th at 8:36 p.m. It's hard, difficult to notice because it just opens the moon just ever so slightly. But at 9:34 on January 20th, that's when the moon enters the umbra, and that's when you can start seeing it. The moon goes completely into the umbra of the Earth's shadow at 10:41. And the middle eclipse is at 11:13. So how it begins when the moon starts leaving the umbra at 11:43. The moon leaves the umbra completely at 12:50 a.m. That would be on January the 21st. It would be Monday morning, and the moon completely leaves the penumbra at 1:48 a.m. Central Standard Time. So that's a lot of information about what's going on tonight and this week. I'll talk about in future segments about that bright object in the eastern sky called Venus, and some other things that are happening every week. So I think I've taken up an awful lot of time. I'm going to give it back to Net Control. This is KS5, JHA, Chaz. Right now, Tom, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Chaz. Appreciate it. Boy, I didn't realize I've been doing this net for so long. It's amazing. But thanks, and I appreciate it. Chaz helped to set up the original format to this net, and he has provided the support from here and there. And I thank you very much for doing this weekly segment for me. I got your notes relatively late. I should say I discovered them relatively late. I'll go ahead and put graphics and things together. If you do this again for me, I'll put in the links that make sense for what you present. Thanks again. Thank you for taking this What's Up segment. This is KE5ICX. I'm Net Control for tonight's Skynet. We'll go ahead and take a brief break here and take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. I will put you on the list. Okay, that's okay. We'll move on. We'll take, oh, by the way, we're in the fourth quarter over here for the Dallas game. Rams 30, Cowboys are 15. This is not looking good with 7 minutes and 16 seconds left in the game. Miss Carolyn, KC5OZT. You have a featured constellation for us this evening. Go ahead, the net is yours.
Okay, thank you. This is KC5OZT, and tonight we're going to look at Gemini the Twins. It's one of the zodiac constellations. It's the 30th largest constellation. It represents the twins, Castor and Pollux, from Greek mythology. Their mother was Leda, L-E-D-A. But Castor was a mortal son of the king of Sparta, and Pollux was a divine son of Zeus. They grew up together, though, and were very close, and in fact, they were part of the Argonauts' expedition to get the Golden Fleece, and they rescued the crew on a number of occasions. And they've been known as the patron saints of sailors, and were said to have been given the power to rescue sailors shipwrecked by the sea god Poseidon. And oddly, the twins are associated with the phenomena St. Elmo's fire. That's an electrical phenomena that occurs during thunderstorms when a coronal discharge from a pointed object in a strong electric field creates luminous plasma. And Elmo's fire would appear to sailors as a glowing ball of light during thunderstorms, and they considered it was a sign their guardian saint was with them. Castor and Pollux eventually, though, clashed the two other twins, Lynceus and Idas, former Argonauts, over two women. And in a fight between the four, Lynceus stabbed Castor with a sword, and when Pollux saw this, he killed Lynceus. When Idas saw this, he attacked Pollux, but Zeus sent a thunderbolt, which saved his son. Pollux asked Zeus, though, to share his immortality with his dead brother, so Zeus placed them both in the sky, where they remain inseparable in Gemini. The stars, Castor and Pollux, mark the twins' heads. Looking at these stars, Castor, or Alpha, is actually the second brightest star, and the 44th brightest star in the sky. Magnitude 1.58, and it's a visual binary. Each component of the system is in itself a spectroscopic binary. So that makes 4 in all. And Castor also has a faint companion, which is also an eclipsing binary, Class M dwarf. So this makes Castor really a sextuple star system, as all 6 of its components are gravitationally bound together. Pollux, also known as Beta, is actually the brightest star in Gemini, 17th brightest star in the sky. It's an orange giant, Class K, magnitude 1.14, and it has an extrasolar planet known as Pollux B. The mass at least 2.3 times that of Jupiter, confirmed. And there is an interesting star, it's a favorite of amateurs. We've mentioned them before, the dwarf novas, and this is Geminorum. The dwarf nova, that's a binary star composed of a white dwarf that closely orbits a red dwarf. About every 100 days, the star has an outburst with a dramatic increase in luminosity. The 2 dwarfs have an orbital period of 4 hours and 11 minutes, which is very short. The main reason it's a variable, they eclipse each other with each revolution. And usually the star has a magnitude of varies from 14 to 15. But the reason amateurs like to watch it every night to see if they see anything, during an outburst the system can reach night magnitude, occasionally brighter, but it makes it 100 times brighter. So that's something amateurs watch for. That's something you want to look at every night just to see if it's risen. There's another one called SS Cygni and Cygnus. That's the same kind. Moving on to deep sky objects. There's some pretty good ones in this. The first one is M35, an ice-open star cluster, magnitude 5.3. Covers an area of the sky as big as the full moon. And NGC 2158 is another open cluster, southwest of M35 at magnitude 8.6. It's believed to be about 1 billion years old. Number 2 object is the Eskimo Nebula. This is a bipolar double-shell planetary nebula, magnitude 10.1, discovered by Herschel. This nebula is surrounded by a layer of gas that used to form the outer layers of a star similar to the Sun. It's sometimes also called the Clown Face Nebula. And it can be observed in a small telescope. Okay, number 3, moving on. This goes by the name Jellyfish Nebula, IC443. It's a supernova remnant near the star Eta Geminorum. It's believed to be a remnant of a supernova, but occurred anywhere from 3,000 to 30,000 years ago. The explosion also created a neutron star. And in the photo, if you look, what's unusual is that its shell-like form has two halves that have different structures and emissions. The larger northeastern shell, that's the violet-colored semicircle. The top left is sheet-like filaments that are emitting light from iron, neon, silicon, and oxygen gas atoms and dust particles heated by the supernova. The smaller southern shell that's a bright cyan color on the bottom half of the image is constructed of denser clumps and knots, primarily emitting light from the hydrogen gas and heated dust. Right, moving on to number 4. This is known as the Medusa Nebula, another planetary. It's near the border with Canis Minor. It's very old and large, more than 4 light years across. And it got its name because they thought the filaments of the gas looked like the Gorgon Medusa, the monster from this who would turn people to stone. It was discovered by UCLA astronomer George Abel. It was believed to be a supernova remnant until the 1970s when the Soviet astronomers confirmed it was most likely a planetary nebula, formed when a red giant turned into a white dwarf and shed its outer layers. Although it is magnitude 7.68, it has a low surface brightness, and it takes at least an 8-inch telescope with an O3 filter to find it, so it's not as easy to see. And then we have another planetary. This goes by NGC 2371, 2372, because it's got dual lobes. One that looks like it could be 2 different separate objects. And it's located southwest of Castor. At magnitude 13, can be seen in an amateur scope. And it's one of the objects on the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's finest NGC objects list. So, Gemini is a nice constellation to take a look at, and between the deep sky objects and watching for you, Gemini, take a quick tour through this constellation. I know you'll enjoy it. And at that time, I will turn it back to you, K50ZT.
KG5P, comment.
Go ahead.
Hi, Carolyn. Yeah, you did mention that Pollux is a magnitude 1 star, and if you have an equatorial go-to amount, as you know, you have to calibrate it. We just can't stick it in and start searching for stuff. And Pollux is a very good calibration star. I use that all the time. It's easy to see, especially in the dark sky, like at the Texas Star Party. And another one is the one right next to it, Procyon, which is in Canis Minor. That's also another bright star that I use all the time as a calibration star. So back to net, KG5P.
KG5P in with the question.
KE5PM, go ahead with your question. Contact direct.
There was one of the first stars mentioned, I think you said Geminorum. The one about that had the nova, that was a binary system. Can you say again which star that was? Was it Geminorum or was it something like Upsilon Geminorum?
Well, the only one I mentioned said Castor and Pollux was Geminorum, and it's two dwarfs that do orbit each other. So that may be the one you're thinking about. KC50ZT.
KG5P.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, if you're looking at Carolyn's constellation map, Geminorum is on the left, almost on the left side. It's around 8 hours on the left side of the map. At around 8 hours and about 20 degrees. So that's where that is. KG5P.
Eric, are you good with that answer? KE5EN from KE5ICX.
Yeah, I just found it. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. KE5EN, back to net.
All right, very good. And yeah, it took me a minute to find it myself on the map. This is KE5ICX, that control for tonight's Skynet. I'll go ahead and ask if there are additional check-ins at this point. I'll take those, and then we'll move on to the next section. Anyone like to join us, please come to your call sign name and location. No problem. We'll just sail right on. Miss Brenda, WD50ZL, what do you have for us for recent astronomical discoveries this evening?
All right, this is WD50ZL. I have two articles. The first one is entitled Cosmic Telescope Zooms In on the Beginning of Time. Observations from Gemini Observatory identify a key fingerprint of an extremely distant quasar, allowing astronomers to sample light emitted from the dawn of time. Astronomers happened upon this deep glimpse into space and time thanks to an unremarkable foreground galaxy acting as a gravitational lens, which magnified the quasar's ancient light. Gemini observations provide critical pieces of the puzzle in confirming this object as the brightest appearing quasar so early in the history of the universe, raising hopes that more sources like this will be found. Before the cosmos reached its billionth birthday, some of the very first cosmic light began a long journey through the expanding universe. One particular beam of light from an energetic source called a quasar serendipitously passed near an intervening galaxy, whose gravity bent and magnified the quasar's light and refocused it in our direction, allowing telescopes like Gemini North to probe the quasar in great detail. If it weren't for this makeshift cosmic telescope, the quasar's light would appear about 50 times dimmer, said Xiao Fan of the University of Arizona, who led the study. This discovery demonstrates that strongly gravitationally lensed quasars do exist, despite the fact that we've been looking for over 20 years and not found any others this far back. The Gemini observations provided key pieces of the puzzle by filling a critical hole in the data. The Gemini North Telescope on Mauna Kea, Hawaii, utilized the Gemini near-infrared spectrograph to detect a significant swath of the infrared part of the light spectrum. The Gemini data contains the telltale signature of magnesium, which is critical for determining how far back in time we're looking. The Gemini observations also led to a determination of the mass of the black hole powering a quasar. When we combine the Gemini data with observations from multiple observatories on Mauna Kea, the Hubble Space Telescope, and other observatories around the world, we were able to paint a complete picture of the quasar in the intervening galaxy, said Sage Wang of the University of California, Santa Barbara, who is a member of the Discovery team. That picture reveals that the quasar is located extremely far back in time and space, shortly after what is known as the epoch of reionization, when the very first light emerged from the Big Bang. This is one of the first sources to shine as the universe emerged from the cosmic dark ages, said Jenny Lang of the University of Arizona, another member of the Discovery team. Prior to this, no stars, quasars, or galaxies had been formed until objects like this appeared like candles in the dark. The foreground galaxy that enhances our view of the quasar is especially dim, which is extremely fortuitous. If this galaxy were much brighter, we would have been able to differentiate it from the quasar, explained Fan, adding that this finding will change the way astronomers look for lensed quasars in the future and could significantly increase the number of lensed quasar discoveries. However, as Fan suggested, we don't expect to find many quasars brighter than this one in the whole observable universe. This is a very long article, so I'm going to stop there and move on. Next article is entitled X-ray Pulse Detected Near Event Horizon as Black Hole Devours Star. Now researchers at MIT and elsewhere have poured through data from multiple telescopes' observations of the event and discovered a curiously intense, stable, and periodic pulse or signal of X-rays across all data sets. The signal appears to emanate from an area very close to the black hole's event horizon, the point beyond which material is swallowed inescapably by the black hole. The signal appears to be periodically brighten and fade every 131 seconds and persist over at least 450 days. The researchers believe that whatever is emitting the periodic signal must be orbiting the black hole just outside the event horizon near the innermost stable circular orbit, or ISCO, the smallest orbit in which a particle can safely travel around a black hole. Given the signal's stable proximity of the black hole and the black hole's mass, which researchers previously estimated to be about 1 million times that of the Sun, the team has calculated that the black hole is spinning at about 50% the speed of light. The findings, reported today in the journal Science, are the first demonstration of a tidal disruption flare being used to estimate a black hole's spin. The study's first author, Dheeraj Pasham, a postdoc at MIT's Kavli Institute for Astrophysics and Space Research, says that most supermassive black holes are dormant and don't usually emit much in the way of X-ray radiation. Only occasionally will they release bursts of activity, such as when stars get close enough for black holes to devour them. Now he says that, given the team's results, such tidal disruption flares can be used to estimate the spin of supermassive black holes, a characteristic that has been, up until now, incredibly tricky to pin down. Events where black holes shred stars that come too close to them can help us map out the spins of several supermassive black holes that are dormant and otherwise hidden at the centers of galaxies, Pasham says. This could ultimately help us understand how galaxies evolved over cosmic time. Pasham's co-authors include Ronald Remillard, well, a bunch of names. Theoretical models of tidal disruption flares show that when a black hole shreds a star apart, some of that star's material may stay outside the event horizon, circling, at least temporarily, in a stable orbit such as the ISCO and giving off periodic flashes of X-rays before ultimately being fed by the black hole. The periodicity of the X-ray flashes thus encodes key information about the size of the ISCO, which itself is dictated by how fast the black hole is spinning. Pasham and his colleagues thought that if they could see, since regular flashes very close to a black hole that had undergone a recent tidal disruption event, these signals could give them an idea of how fast the black hole was spinning. They focused their research on ASA SSN-14LI, the tidal disruption event that astronomers identified in November 2014 using the ground-based all-sky automatic survey for supernovae. This system is exciting because we think it's a poster child for tidal disruption flares, Pasham says. This particular event seems to match many of the theoretical predictions. Well, this is also a very long article, so I'm going to quit there. We're kind of running short of time. These are both in ScienceDaily.com this week, so you can go there and read up on this. Back to that. This is WB5OZL.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda, and thanks for those announcements and reports. This is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Skynet. Let's move on to Tony, NT5TM, with exploration news and history. Go ahead.
I'll try to be efficient. Brenda was right to point out that we are running just a little late. Unfortunately, my first piece of news is not an encouraging one. The Hubble's Wide Field Camera 3 is still in trouble. People who follow space news may have heard that earlier this month, on January 8th, software detected that there were voltage levels that were out of range. Something that was supposed to have a certain voltage across it had either too much or too little, indicating that perhaps it was failing short or failing open. They didn't clarify which. And so the entire instrument was placed in standby mode. They are trying to develop a recovery plan and figure out what the cause of the failure was. And they do stress that satellite operations are not hampered by the government shutdown. But as of yet, they don't know. They don't know if the instrument will be brought back online or not. The Hubble has lasted a long time and been an outstanding and successful instrument. I really hope they're able to recover its flagship optical camera. On a happy note, efforts to get Mars InSight fully operational are proceeding. And if you've ever had to untangle the cables behind your computer or ham radio station, you will sympathize. Its seismometer has been working well, but it's important to get it fully commissioned. And one of the tricks with this seismometer is that it's connected to the InSight lander by a long, flat ribbon cable. This cable can blow and flutter in the wind, and of course those vibrations would completely swamp any tiny Mars quakes that it detected. InSight lander has been reaching out with its robotic arm and adjusting the position of the cable and adjusting the position of a weight, trying to find the position where the cable transmits the least amount of wind noise and noise from the lander to the seismometer. At least it isn't as tangled as the stuff behind my operating position. But they still believe that they are doing well and on track to begin official, formal scientific operations in February. We did have some great stuff this week in space history, going back a long time. On January 7th, 1607, Galileo noticed that there were these four bright stars that always seemed to follow the brightest planet, or at least the biggest planet. The Galilean satellites Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. They were first seen by Galilei in January of 1610, and he finally figured out that they were satellites in March of 1610. They were the first objects ever found to orbit another planet. They derived from the lovers of Zeus. The names derived from the lovers of Zeus. They are among the largest satellites in the solar system, with the exception of the Sun and the 8 planets. On January 7th, 1968, we're fast-forwarding there, Surveyor 7 was launched. This was the 7th and last lander of the American Surveyor program sent to probe the surface of the moon. It transmitted 21,000 pictures and poked and prodded the surface with a robotic arm. The Surveyor probes were quite important. Here, Tom is showing on YouTube one of the Surveyor lunar panoramas. And Tom, the picture you had there, if you want to skip forward back to Lunar Prospector, that would be awesome too. On, let's see, January 7th, that was a big day, I guess, 1998, Lunar Prospector was launched. Lunar Prospector was the third mission of NASA's Discovery program. It cost $62.8 million and made a low orbit over the moon. It was cool because it contained very detailed spectrographic equipment for mineral mapping. It could do things like spot ice deposits near the north and south pole of the moon, carefully measure the moon's magnetic field, and discover unusual elements on the moon's surface, like thorium. You know, it's usable for reactor fuel. No other probe has ever measured the mineral composition of the moon's surface in as much accuracy and variety as Lunar Prospector. A bit about the Chinese probes to the moon, such as the Chang'e 4 lander and the Yutu-2 lunar rover on the far side of the moon. But before we could get to any of the modern rovers, we had the Lunokhod. On January 8th, 1973, the Soviet Union launched Luna 21 with its Lunokhod 2 rover. This rover looked like a bathtub, except it had a lid that opened and closed. It drove around on the moon's surface, measured the lunar composition, and carried a laser reflector, like the Apollo program did, to help accurate measurements of the distance from the Earth to the moon. Lunokhod 2 met a very interesting fate. The lid of the bathtub had to be open to collect solar power, and then at night, in the lunar night, it had to be closed to keep heat from escaping the probe. Unfortunately, at some point, the lid banged into the rim of a crater and became covered with moon dust. Moon dust is a good insulator, and it interfered with the ability of the probe to cool itself during the lunar day. Still, it was an interesting and creative experiment. Though he has never collected it, Owen Garriott, son of astronaut Richard Garriott, bought the Luna 2 probe at an auction at Sotheby's for under $70,000 back in 1993. So if he can ever get up there to collect it, he gets his own moon rover. Now, on January 9th, 2001, Shenzhou 2 was launched by the Chinese. The type of their uncrewed, this is an uncrewed mission of their crewed Soyuz-derived orbital vehicle. It carried a monkey, a dog, and a rabbit to test its life support systems. On January 10th, oh, this thing had a great stamp, the Soviet Union launched a Venera probe to, let me find the date here, January 10th, 1969, the Soviet Union launched Venera 6 to Venus. It had a really cool postage stamp, which I accidentally clicked on there. It obtained atmospheric data by using an atmospheric descent and entry probe. It contained a large parachute to slow its descent through the thick Venusian atmosphere. It took 51 minutes to pass down to the surface and collected quite a bit of data on the, well, boiling hell, really, but fascinating scientifically. More blasts from the past. On January 11th, 1787, Oberon was discovered, as well as Titania. Now, this is not Titan, the moon of Saturn. These are Titania and Oberon, the moons of Uranus. Are fascinating and hard to see, although there has been some disagreement over how to number them. William Herschel, the astronomer who first observed them, thought he saw several other moons that turned out not to really exist. He initially called these, I think, the fourth and sixth moons of the planet, when in fact they're generally considered the first and second. On January 12th, back in 1820, the Royal Astronomical Society was founded. Now, this is mainly open to professional astronomers and their graduate students, so we can't quite sign up, although we can become friends of the society. It is nevertheless a very influential organization in the propagation of astronomical knowledge. And finally, well, since I'm a computer person, I have to mention that on January 12th, 2005, the Deep Impact Space Probe was launched. The NASA probe was designed to study the interior composition of the comet Tempel 1, also known as 9P Tempel, by releasing an impactor, a warhead, to smash into the comet and create an impact crater. This was exciting and scientifically successful, and it was sent further on in an extended mission to rendezvous with another comet. However, after that, in September of 2013, communication with the probe was suddenly lost. Why was that? Oh, because it had its own version of the year 2K problem. It used a certain size of binary number, a 32-bit number, to count up the time since it had been launched in 1/10 of a second increments. Not even from when it was launched, but from January 1st, 2000. And eventually that counter overflowed. It wrapped around back to zero. This bug caused these spacecraft's computers to become deeply confused and reboot endlessly and forget about such minor matters as conducting science and communicating with Earth. So although it was a very successful probe, it was also doomed by its very own version of the Y2K bug. That's NT5TM with This Week in Space History. Back to net.
KG5P comment?
Go ahead, Mike, and contact Tony direct if you'd like.
Okay, well, this is kind of a direct, just a general comment. Tony had mentioned the Royal Astronomical Society. Keith Venables, who's a member, who's a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society, he's a regular at the Texas Star Party. I see him there every year. Very nice guy. He's from London, but he comes to the Texas Star Party every year. And he is primarily an amateur astronomer, but he was elected a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society. Back to that, KG5P.
W5FC. All right, very good. Thanks, Mike. We're going to skip the last two sections since we're reaching the bottom of the hour here. I'll ask for additional check-ins before we close it out. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come down with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving.
I got the last check-in this evening, N5HYP, Tom over in Irving. I bet she's getting ready for the next net as well.
Be operational.
So tonight we had 23 check-ins participating on the air, including myself. Thanks to all who did. We hope to join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations. I could use one more, by the way, so if you're interested and you've not already contacted me, send an email to KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, at yahoo.com. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and on Twitter, as well as other audio and video feeds, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5sc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is KE5ICX Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:29 local time, local time, and returning the repeater for normal use, at least for 5 more minutes. 7-3, everybody, and enjoyed discovering the universe. And we'll be back with the Afterglow movie net in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
Good, everyone. Thanks. K5 JW. Didn't know if my photon joke came over echoing. Kilo 5, Julia, Delta Whiskey.
I'm not sure if I even heard it. You want to pass it by again, KG5P?
Yeah, it's an old joke, but a photon goes into a hotel to get a room, and the front desk guy asks him if he can help him with his luggage, and he says, "No, thanks, I'm traveling light."
Okay, yeah, well, there was a young girl named Bright whose speed was much greater than light. She left one day in a relative way and arrived the previous night. KG5P.
Thanks, Mike. I've heard that, but I wouldn't be able to even tell you after I just heard you say it, but I have heard it. Thanks to Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey. I'll be monitoring this evening.
is KE5ICX. I think you heard me earlier, but that's okay. Does anyone need to use a repeater before we begin the Afterglow Movie Net? Okay, before we do actual check-ins, let me go ahead and tell you what tonight's assigned movie was. It actually is part of this month's Not Ready for Prime Time movies. These are amateur productions that have been done that turn out to be not too bad over the last few years. This one is called Fairest of Them All. This is from a series of, I think, 10 or 11 different episodes. It's done over the last 6 years, I think, from Star Trek Continues, which is essentially a continuation of the Star Trek series from the 1960s, employing the 4th and 5th seasons of the series. In fact, they have a two-part finale which really pulls together the original series and then brings it up to the motion pictures of starting in 1979, which in and of itself is kind of interesting. At any rate, this is an episode. It's called Fairest of Them All. It's a fan-produced Star Trek episode released in 2014. It's the third in the web series of Star Trek Continues, which aims to continue the episodes of Star Trek's original series, replacing their visual and story, replicating their visual and storytelling style. It was written by James Kerwin and Vic Mignogna, with a story by him and by Kerwin. Fairest of Them All is a direct continuation of the original Star Trek episode Mirror, Mirror. In 2014, Fairest of Them All won the Burbank International Film Festival Award for Best New Media in Drama. Here's the story. If you don't recognize the title of the original, I think you'll figure it out from this plot summary and it as a sequel. The story begins with a recap of the last few minutes of the original episode. In the Mirror Universe, Kirk urges Mirror Universe Spock to take command of the ISS Enterprise, spare the Vulcans, and find a way to make peace to prevent the Terran Empire from collapsing. He and his landing party are then transported back to the Federation Prime Universe, while their evil counterparts return to the alternate reality. The evil Kirk, now in command again, is determined to take the dilithium crystals from the Vulcans or to destroy them as an example of what happens to those who dare to resist the Terran Empire. The Vulcans are not willing to hand over the crystals, and Kirk orders a torpedo barrage on their planet, rejecting the diplomatic solution recommended by Spock. The pitiless attack completely wipes out the Vulcan civilization and also destroys the dilithium crystals on the planet. Spock points out that the loss of the crystals would not have happened if Captain had followed his advice. Facing unexpected and firm criticism by his first officer, the visibly nervous Kirk leaves the bridge and returns to his quarters. I guess that's a misspelling there. Meanwhile, 3 Andorian vessels have witnessed the reckless attack on the Vulcans and communicated to the Enterprise they are no longer recognize the authority of the Terran Empire, formalizing the start of the revolution. Spock informs the captain of the approaching of the Andorian ships, but Kirk orders him to destroy them and if they try any aggressive moves. Spock refuses to comply. Kirk reacts to the act of insubordination by activating the Tantalus field, a deadly device concealed in his quarters to kill Spock. Unexpectedly, the machine does not work. Kirk then calls his private guards, and they head to the bridge to arrest Spock. Spock, in the meantime, has left the bridge and is convinced Scotty to join the now explicit mutiny. They take possession of the auxiliary control room. From there, they have full control of the navigation of the ship. Other crew members sent by Kirk to eliminate Spock are attracted to the peaceful philosophy promoted by the Vulcan and join the mutiny as well. Marlena reveals Spock that she is responsible for disabling the Tantalus field. Then Kirk tried to kill the first officer, but that the device could now be used to eliminate Kirk.
Spock rejects the suggestion, replying that no revolution can succeed using the same methods applied by the previous one. And finally, the more time passes, the more Kirk is abandoned by his crew and feels helpless, to the point that the captain asks Spock to meet at the officers' lounge to discuss the matter in a civil way and find a compromise. Spock accepts the invitation, well aware that the meeting could hide a trap. When the two men are facing each other, Kirk tries to shoot Spock, but the Vulcan reveals to the captain that all his weapons have been disabled through his thoughts through a dampening field. Kirk, enraged for failing the attempt, attacks the Vulcan. I'll get him right. And during the pause in the fight, shouts at him. Shouts his thoughts about the crew. There we go. Stating that they're not just expendable pawns to reach his goals, unbeknownst to the leader. Two guards, his statements are being broadcast to the entire ship by Spock. Two guards then enter the officers' lounge, and to Kirk's surprise, arrest and finally neutralize him. Spock gives a shuttlecraft to Kirk and to the few crew members still loyal to him so that they can reach the nearest habitable system. What was that show? The Bounty. No, it's not that. It's Space Bounty. Spock states that he's aware of the fact that the entire Terran fleet will try to stop the Enterprise in his attempts to build a peaceful empire, but that he must try. In the last scene, Spock takes command of the bridge as captain and gives the navigator the order to move, quote, forward. And that's it. That's the description. There's additional things under Wiki. You can read it on your own, talking about production and when it was released and all the folks that were involved. It was very popular when it came out. Of all the amateur productions, I think this is the one that has stood up to repeat viewings. I will now take check-ins. I'll do over-air first, and then I'll go to Echolink over-air. If you'd like to talk about this film or check in, all I need is your name. Your call sign, phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you saw the movie. So check-ins, please.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu, November, Juliet, Frank, and Flower Mound. 5, Papa, Mike, and Richardson. And I did see the movie. Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burrow in Dallas. I did see the movie.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving. Yep, we saw the show.
5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. Yes, I did see it. Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn and Louisville, and I did see it.
Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas. Yes, I saw the Mirror of Mirror Mirror. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Yes, I saw it. Kilo 5, Quebec Delta Quebec, Eric in Garland, and I have not seen it. Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey. Hello, Annette. Tom, I have not seen the movie. I am just going to monitor. I'm too far from the radio anyway, so I'm just going to hang in there and listen in the background. Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey.
All right, believe it or not, you guys really hit me up quick here on this. Most of you, I know all of you really, but I missed somebody, so I will ask for Phil. I've got KG5ZNJ Frank over in Flower Mound. Frank, did you see it?
Yeah, sorry about that. I did see the movie, KG5ZNJ.
All right, I suspected you did. You've seen everything since you started checking in. KG5P, Mike, gotcha, yes. K5TSK, Burrow, Dallas, yep.
F5HYP, Tom, the whole group saw it. WC50ZL, Miss Brenda, yep. KC50ZT, Miss Carolyn, yep. W5EBB, David in Dallas, yep. NT5TM, Tony Dallas, yep. There was another station after that. I've got KF, and I got K something, and I just had a memory block at that point. I'll come back to you in a second. KF5QDQ, Eric. No, he didn't see it, but he's checked in on a couple of the nets. And K5JDW, John, you did not see it. I'll give you an opportunity to comment if you like. You probably both have seen the Mirror episode, so there may be some comments there. I had one other station I missed, a K station. Would you please come back with your call sign, name, and did you see it? Any additional check-ins, please come out. I feel bad. I feel like I missed somebody. Maybe it corrected itself. There may have been a double. May have been John. Okay, I think that was a double, so I think I got everybody. Okay, the way this works, as all of you know or should know, is we begin at the top of the list and we talk about aspects of the story, of the movie we saw. In this case, a 1-hour television, quote, episode, end quote, of Star Trek Continues. So I'll start at the top. We'll talk about plot. Frank, KG5ZNJ, what did you think about the plot for this amateur production?
This is KG5ZNJ. I was kind of blown away by it. You know, I wasn't expecting that it would be as good as it was. I really thought that I would be putting the knife to it, and which I pretty much prefer doing. I always have more fun putting the knife to stuff than praising stuff. But yeah, I was completely blown away by it because it was a stunning reproduction of the old show, and they did such a good job of, you know, reproducing this set and this style and the art direction, as they call it, and how they, you know, they recreated even the way that they filmed it with every idiosyncrasy. So that just, I was so blown away by that. It was hard for me to focus on the rest of it because I just couldn't believe how good of a job they did. But yeah, plot. I remember that episode, Mirror Mirror. It's one of the really good original series episodes, and it was very cool that it was like a continuation of what went on to happen on the Dark Alter universe or whatever. And I thought it was a very good story. It, you know, they picked up where the old series left an opening for another story, and just the way they treated it, I thought was really well done. And there was a couple of things that almost didn't make sense, you know, like it was too simplistic, but they corrected it quickly. I would have thought it would have never got to that point, but you know, it was especially just the idea of, okay, Spock's committing a mutiny, and you know, what is he going to do? Well, obviously he's going to take over the auxiliary bridge. That's, you know, the ship can be controlled from there, which I always thought was a funny thing that the original series had, because if that's really the best place to be, why not always be there? You know what I mean? Like, why be in the bridge if you're vulnerable by having this backup bridge that's more powerful? So obviously somebody who's taking over the ship would go there first, and it was a little silly that you know, Captain Kirk didn't think of that first, or even had it under guard, you know, at all times. That was a hole in the story that that I kind of, it got my attention, let's say. But aside from that little thing, I really thought very highly of it. I was pretty blown away. So KG5ZNJ, back to net control.
Good, thank you, Frank. Next up, KG5P, Mike. You saw, what did you think of the plot?
Right, KG5, ICX, and the net, KG5P. Well, I kind of agree with Frank on the comments. I thought it was excellently done. In fact, this was like episode 3. I'd never seen this or the first two, and when I started watching it, I thought I was watching the original Star Trek for a minute. I thought maybe I'd gotten the wrong movie. The guy that played Captain Kirk looked just like a young William Shatner, before he fatted up. And I had trouble placing Spock because this Spock had a beard, or a goatee or something. But, it was done exactly in the style of the original Star Trek, and that was why I thought that maybe I was watching the wrong movie. As I got into the movie, then I realized, no, obviously not. But I kept thinking back to one of my favorite books, and movies, of course, for that matter, was the Mutiny on the Bounty series, and this was made had about 3 different versions of it at least. There was a 1935 version with Charles Laughton and Clark Gable, and then it was the most famous one, I think, was Marlon Brando and Trevor Howard. That was 1962. And then it was remade again in 1984 with Mel Gibson and Anthony Hopkins. And in this movie, the Captain Bligh was he was a good Captain Bligh, and the Mel Gibson character, the Fletcher Christian, was the bad guy. So it was a twist on that, and I thought this movie was almost like another twist on the Mutiny on the Bounty. The other movie that I liked that was similar to this was the Caine Mutiny, which came out in 1954 with Humphrey Bogart, Willie Ferrer, and Fred McMurray. But before Fred McMurray started doing stupid stuff like The Son of Flubber and all that. But this Captain Kirk, he was like Captain Bligh. Or Captain Queeg in the Caine Mutiny, and Captain Bligh for that matter, he was always blaming other people for his own screw-ups. He never took responsibility when he screwed something up. And he had no patience for anything. So you wondered how he rose to the rank of captain, but then he was the bad captain from the alternate universe. So I really love it. It was just a remake of the Caine Mutiny. There's a few other incidentals thrown in. It looked like the Enterprise was sort of a space-going whorehouse. Everybody had girlfriends that were just along for the ride, it seemed. But other than that, those are my comments on the plot. Back to net, KG5P.
All right, thanks, Mike. Good comments. KF5TSK, Burl, you saw it. What did you think of the plot?
This is KF5TSK. Well, my initial thought was that really turned off by it, simply because, for years I had this impression of Captain Kirk, and I remember when Star Trek started, their contracts were really strict about what they could do and what they could appear in, and it was almost like, well, when you sign on with Star Trek, this is a lifelong commitment. You can't go and almost do other movies. And there were so many things in the plot that I guess was different, or you didn't know, anyone's position. We're going to take this planet no matter what. It doesn't matter if we kill everyone, which seems to be, or was, the opposite of what we expected in Star Trek. But, the characters were, almost the same. Chekhov sounded the same. The thing with the girlfriends and, who's loyal to me, and, Kirk forgives Chekhov, And when he reports to the bridge, he says, put him back in the brig. You know, it's like, you didn't know what he was going to do next, or, you know, what the plan was, you know. Leader in charge would always have, you know, this is our objective. But, you know, I like the set and the surroundings, but the plot was too thick, too long. You know, you just expected more, and it didn't happen, but it was a comedy. It was a great comedy. KFI PSK back to net.
All right, thank you, Burl. I'll just interject this, and then we'll continue quickly. This is a sequel to an episode where they go into an alternate universe, and they have evil versions of themselves, pirate versions, in essence. It was written by Jerome Bixby, and Bixby wrote it as an idea about would a federation that was totalitarian be successful, and what would it look like? That was the idea of the story that when he interviewed years later. So that's it, and in fact it spawned 5 different sequel episodes in Star Trek history, including the most recent one, Star Trek Discovery. So this was an episode that was done from amateur fans who were interested in seeing what that mirror universe looked like in the original series. So that's maybe why it's confusing. Next up, N5HYP, Tom and Family et al. What are your comments on the plot?
Hey, Tom, KE5ICX and 5HYP. Yeah, Holly and I watched it. Anna was not here tonight, so she didn't. You know, I mean, I was not really prepared for the fact that this was, in essence, a fan film. And so I was disoriented at first. But what was interesting, what was very interesting, though, just was how well it prepared. It compared to the original series in picking up the storyline. You know, as we went along, you realized what was really going on. Holly thought that the actor who did, and we're talking about characters later on, who did Captain Kirk, you know, carried himself very well. You know, had a lot of the mannerisms of the Kirk character. Anyway, so it was very interesting from that standpoint. You know, there were some times where some of the characters, especially the ancillary characters, were a little shallow. But the whole concept of the plot was good, and taking it to another level. So we'll talk about characters and effects later on. This is N5HYP. Back to that.
Thank you, Tom and Holly. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, you saw it. What did you think of the plot?
This is WB50ZL. Well, I really liked it. I had seen it before. I love the series. To me, it's just kind of fascinating to watch how much the characters are so similar to the originals. And of course, this thing is very thought-provoking, as were so many of the original Star Trek episodes. You know, about just the nature of civilization and sentient beings and all that, and what's right and what's wrong. And a lot of exploration philosophical exploration about people and aliens. So, and it's well written. I think it's well acted. I just thought it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think the plot was good. I've watched all of these. The writing on it was pretty good. All right, back to net. WB5OZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Next up, KC50ZT, Miss Carolyn, what'd you think of the plot?
Well, I liked it. It was, it did seem odd, having Kirk as a villain, you might say, but, and having Spock, though, seeing his own planet destroyed, and yet he wanted to, have peace and everything, and that actually made him, seem like that was his human side that, that they were always talking about in the original series, the human side being, but, I don't know, I just liked the way it just sort of moved on, and with some surprises, like Dr. McCoy sticking the needle in Chekhov, but I like the way it just turned out, and Spock was lenient to Kirk again, giving him a chance to escape. That was very human having. So I like the plot. KC50ZT.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. Next up, W5EBB, David, what'd you think of the plot? This is KE5ICS.
Oh, it's a really good plot, and this, perhaps, based on the YouTube view count, is the most popular of the 11 Star Trek Continues episodes. I think those had close to 1 million views, the others about half that, and appropriately so. I mean, it's among the best. I did watch all the episodes, and they're all good in their own way. And this episode is perfect fodder for fan fiction treatment. I mean, it's firmly based on an original episode, Mirror, Mirror, and seamlessly and plausibly extends the plot line and characters. The evil characters, that is. Now, of course, good Kirk planted the seed in evil Spock's mind, encouraging him to employ a logical assessment of the current path of the evil Terran Empire, and then to be the impetus to change from domination and violence to one of intergalactic world peace. And events soon fall into place to allow Spock to succeed in recruiting crew members, and the mutiny soon becomes, we'll call it a transition of command, and the Khan-like banishment of evil Kirk. And we have the promise of the evil empire transitioning over the course of time into becoming a good, benevolent federation. But there's a that wasn't explored in this episode. Mirror, Mirror is not just an exploration of the possibility of alternative universes. They are opposite universes. Now, recall in the original episode, they transport a gentle, sweet, violacious, pink-dyed poodle, and it comes back barking, mean, and vicious. It follows, then, if the present evil universe starts on a path toward being good, then necessarily, so would the present good universe start on a path towards becoming evil. W5EBB.
Thank you, David. And this is central point in my comments, too. NT5TM, Tony, your comments on plot.
Thank you, Tom and David and everybody. Boy, I've gotten so used to hating everything we do on this net that all the movies we talk about that I was really shocked. The plot was really very plausible. A leader who runs the ship by assassinating people and subjecting everyone to the agony chamber at his slightest whim, and where assassination is the normal method of career advancement, is not going to run a very stable, well-organized, or efficient command, and they did carry that through. I really do like this for all the reasons Burl hated it, I think, that you could never quite tell. Could we hope for mercy from evil Kirk? No, we couldn't. He was unstable, unpredictable, vicious, and unlikable. The actor's voice was a little annoying, but it's an imperfect universe. Truly enjoyed the plot. It hit all the traditional notes of the original Star Trek series. Amusingly, I never saw the original episode this was based on, but you know, even the fist fight at the climax, it brings back so many memories. I think the plot was square on, and I strongly approve. NT5TM.
Very good. Thanks, Tony. Next up, KF5 QDQ. Eric, you did not see it, but if you did see Mirror Mirror, and if you're still there, you're welcome to any comments. KF5 QDQ from KE5 ICX.
Evening, everybody. Yes, I did see Mirror Mirror long ago, and all the other Mirror Universe crossovers that happened on DS9 and Enterprise and Discovery, and enjoy all of them, and the concept, and as my wife screams, Voyager as well. I did enjoy the concept of it, but at this point in time, I don't even remember half of what happened, so I'm just going to let it go at that. KF5QDQ, back to Ned.
Right, very good, Eric. So we got a fan on the Mirror Universe gig, which has been extremely popular. I'll mention that in a little bit, but yeah. Okay, good. And I just realized I didn't give the Echolink folks a chance, so I'm going to do that in a second here. I think John said he just wanted to listen in. John, K5JDW, do you have any comments, parting shots, or anything you want to give? I figured he was exiting. Let me go to Echolink. I believe everyone is checked in except for Jay, KG5BZW. So, Jay, I forgot to go to Echolink. Everybody else is checked in. Go ahead with your comments about plot. KG5BZW from KE5ICS.
This is KG5BZW. Yeah, plot. Well, I don't know if I can add much to the comments that everybody else has mentioned. The plot holes that I can, I think I generally agree with everybody that the plot was really plausible. It's plausible, and it seemed to go seamlessly with the original episode. That being said, some of the plot holes of the original episode kind of, by default, seem to track over to this episode, in that, like, the first time when I actually saw this, I mean, probably saw Mirror Mirror years and years ago, but I saw this, and then I figured, yeah, you know what, I really need to see the episode again to see what just how close it is, because I was kind of impressed. Well, you know, you have these killings that kind of go on. What exactly happens in the parallel universe? Are these accidents, I mean, it's kind of the same thing that David W5 EBB was talking about. If it's a parallel universe, it's kind of parallel matching in some form or fashion. And when you got death, well, what exactly is supposed to happen? And I first wonder about that in this episode, and same thing happens in Mirror Mirror. There's people that die, and it's like, well, dang, I wonder if if the Enterprise is just accident prone. Let me reset. Otherwise, I don't know. I've got other comments for sure about characters and plot. I will note that I think it's correct to call this a fan film, but it's not really correct to call it amateurs. There's definitely professionals involved. Vic Noya is he's a professional voice actor, which I find kind of amusing that Tony found annoying. But anyway, yeah, very well-known professional voice actor for a lot of animation and stuff. So anyway, yeah, I'll save that for later. This is KG5 BGW back, isn't it?
Okay, very good. Thanks very much, Jay. And I want to acknowledge JJ, N5IMS. He's a frequent contributor. He's on, but he's just listening in. Do I have any additional check-ins for tonight's net? We are talking about Fairest of Them All. This is actually a fan-produced film, a sequel to the Star Trek original series episode Mirror Mirror. If you're out there and you'd like to check in, I will put you on the list and get your comments. If you haven't, that's okay too. It's nice to know who is listening in. Anyone out there who is not checking and would like to, please come out with your call sign name. Let me know if you saw the movie or not. All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead and give my comments. There have been several television amateur or fan productions that have come out through the years. Star Trek Continues was the third one that I'm aware of. Star Trek Phase 2 is an earlier iteration. It came out a few years earlier, and the stories were long convoluted and somewhat tedious. Star Trek Continues actually has, for plot-wise, all of their stories are less tedious, less wonky, and more action-oriented, but the stories also are more pertinent. This was one of the few episodes they did that was actually a sequel. Most of the other fan fiction usually draws heavily from previous episodes, so this is an exception. Original episodes is where Star Trek Continues usually go. But the thing was is that this particular episode was so well done, so affectionately acknowledging the Jerome Bixby story from Mirror Mirror. I just couldn't help but pick this one as the one we would talk about. The plot fits closely and, in fact, is probably better than some of the Mirror episodes that have been done professionally. Deep Space Nine did several of them I found incredibly boring. There was Star Trek Enterprise that did two-episode, two-part, which I thought was pretty good. It mixed a couple of episodes together, and maybe one day we'll do a review of that one. That's a lot of fun. That one was much better than any of the Deep Space Nine stuff. And then Star Trek Discovery, Season 1 last year, also did multi-part. I think it was 4 episodes in the Mirror universe. Out of the ones I liked, the original I liked the best. And I think this one actually comes in second out of all the Mirror episodes that have been done. It was most faithful to the Jerome Bixby story and what to expect. So I thought it was pretty cool myself. David, W5EBB, made a comment that I thought was interesting too, and that is a Mirror universe. I mean, it comes with the title from the original series. And that is that, hey,
if one changes, then the other one must reflect the change opposite. And as a kid, back, I think it was in junior high school, I wrote this long, elaborate story. I used to do that back then. Nothing major, but I would write long stories, and I had a whole story about what would happen in the mirror universe. And indeed, that is in my story, we had to kill Spock off because it was disrupting the normal universe. And there was a whole elaborate plot on how they went about doing that. So, well, elaborate for somebody in, like, 9th grade. But I was deeply affected by Star Trek, and this particular episode is one of my favorites. I think it's number 3 on my list of all-time favorites with Mirror Mirror. So I'll stop with fanboy stuff because I could go on forever, as everybody knows. So let's go ahead and go to the next section here, which is talking about the characterizations. What do you think? Especially when you got these not-for-pay actors reprising these iconic roles from this 50-year-old TV program. So we'll start at the top. ZNJ, I'll get it right. Frank, what do you think of the characterizations?
KG5ZNJ. Well, you know, it's funny when that episode started, and I had no idea what to expect, and I was blown away by obviously the productions. And then when I saw the characters, the first thing that came to my head was, it was almost like watching, an SNL sketch, from the old days where, they'd have you were expecting them to make fun of the characters. They dress up like the characters, try to act like them, but it's going to be a comedy routine, right? So that's kind of the first impression I got before they started speaking. And then the next phase of it was I had to get over the fact that it wasn't the original actors, and there's that whole fact that the set was just so well done, the production was so well done, that you kind of needed about 5 minutes to ease into it, and your brain just accepts these people as being the old characters. So having said all that, that did work. It all happened, and then you're just watching it just like any other old show, and it was pretty good. Now, I thought that Captain Kirk was by far the best actor who just pulled it off the best. He had the mannerisms down. He had his way of speaking. Interesting bit of random trivia I'm going to throw out there. I lived in Ottawa many years in Canada, and so did my sister, and so did Captain Kirk. He was there in his early college years, Shatner. And my sister ended up living in the apartment that he lived in when he lived in the 50s in Ottawa, when he was going to, I think he was going to college or something. But anyways, we even had pictures of him at this apartment. And she lived in it, and I always used to joke that I used the same command chair that he did. Anyways, you know what I mean. I'm not going to be rude, but or vulgar. So yeah, anyways, he was really good. And the guy who played Scotty was actually Scotty's son. I looked that up because I thought he looked so much like him. I couldn't believe that, there was something going on there, and I saw his name was Doohan. So yeah, it's his son. So I thought that was pretty cool. He did a really good job. I mean, he really had Scotty's way of talking pretty good. Uhura was really good. I mean, it almost threw me off. It was like I thought I was really looking at, Uhura from the original series. So she was awesome. I didn't think Spock was probably one of the weaker ones. I can't put my finger on it, but it just, I don't know, that actor to me just quite didn't have it. There was something off about it. Maybe it was just the way he looked. But, Leonard Nimoy's probably going to be one of the harder guys to imitate. So, he probably did as good as anybody else could. And Sulu was pretty good, too, I thought. So I did like the characters. And, it's hard to imitate something like that. So they did a great job. Now, when I was looking at it and I was done, the thing that was in my head was, I think it would have been really cool to see them do that exact same production, but have original characters. So it's the same actors just playing different characters in that original series world. I think that would be really, really, really good. I don't know, who knows, but that was just what was in my head. But overall, they did a good job. So character-wise, yeah, that's all I got. KG5ZNJ back to net control.
good. Thank you, Frank. Good comments. And I'll tell you a story about Captain Kirk. Now, that's pretty cool. You got to sit in the chair of Captain Kirk. Okay, KG5P, Mike, your comments on characterization. Characters.
All right, KG5RCX and the group, KG5P. Well, I sort of had the same comments that Frank just mentioned. I did notice that Scotty was James Doohan's son, and I also felt that Spock was probably the weakest of all of them. He just was not a credible Leonard Nimoy. I didn't think. Of course, Leonard Nimoy never had a goatee, so he might have been more credible if he hadn't worn that goatee. I don't know why they included that in there. I especially liked the Captain Kirk character. I forget his name, but he seemed to have the original Kirk, the William Shatner mannerisms done very well. I know Tony said his voice was annoying, but I thought he almost duplicated William Shatner's voice, or the character. For instance, he always seemed to speak very calmly and, in kind of a measured cadence. And to me, that was what I thought was the most accurate in his mannerisms. And he also kind of looked like him in a way. Like I said, when I first saw the movie, I thought I was watching the wrong movie because it looked like it was William Shatner. So I have to agree that I happen to like Kirk the best, the Kirk character, whoever the actor was that played him. I noticed one thing, and maybe I missed this, and maybe somebody could correct me on this, that they referred to Hulkins and not Vulcans. Hulkins, or did I hear that wrong? I don't know, but I heard that several times, and I thought there was some kind of twist or variation from Vulcans. Maybe it was the alternate universe thing, I don't know. David, EVB, mentioned something I hadn't realized, but he brought up a good point. I wondered if the original Kirk, who changed places with the bad Kirk, did he actually become bad in the alternate universe if he was doing the same thing? Which we don't know because we don't know what goes on in alternate universes. But I wondered if he turned bad. The bad Kirk really didn't turn good. What I got out of it was that he was sort of exiled to the lifeboat, as was the Charles Lautner or the Trevor Howard. So again, if I missed that, correct me, please. The one last thing is the Chekhov character, of course, originally played by Walter Koenig. Walter Koenig's parents, or Koenig, as the Germans would say, but he was really a Russian, and he would always pronounce his W's, the W sound, or the V sound, he'd always pronounce it as a W, like a W instead of a V. And in Russian, there is no W, W phoneme. So if you were really a Russian, it would be the other way around. Germans don't have a W phoneme, a W, in their language either. So that's why Germans, like Colonel Klink and stuff, it'd be, we have very some feeling with you, because they can't say the W. So I guess that was my comments on the characterization. Back to net, KG5P.
All right, very good, Mike. Thanks. And the reason why Spock had a goatee is because in the alternate universe, in the Mirror Mirror episodes, that's what he had. Made him look more satanic. And I remember TV Guide made a big deal about it, put him on I think, the cover of one of the TV guides because that was so unusual and different to expect that. At any rate, next up, KFITSK, Burl. I know you're not a fan, but tell us what you think about the characterization.
It's KFITSK. Well, I would say that I watched the movie, and I guess now I have more of an explanation of what was going on, and it's probably would have been better if I had knew what to expect, but I just sort of dived into it, and I thought it was just another Star Trek movie. But, you know, the characters, they were, it seemed like everyone's voices were almost like the original characters, you know. Kirk. I really thought, you know, Spock was good. I didn't think he was really that bad. You know, I probably, in looking at it, I took a closer look at his ears, which, you know, in Star Trek, you really didn't get that close to, you know, Spock to actually see if there were any imperfections. But, you know, I was amazed that everyone really sounded like the original characters. And I guess as far as characterization, I really couldn't say that anyone was a bad actor. It was just the way it was written. KFITSK, back to net.
Thanks, Burl. Good comments. N5HYP, Tom, what did you think of the characterization?
K5ICX in the net, N5HYP. Characterization, again, pretty good. One of the things that I think drew me at the beginning was the fact that everybody's voices seemed higher. I mean, you know, and, you know, where it caused me problems was just the fact that it felt like everybody was pitched up. It was a little bit of auto-tune from, you know, the music world, that everybody's pitch was pitched up. You know, and I walked into this, I did not know what I was watching. I didn't realize there was fan fiction of Star Trek episodes out there. And especially fan fiction of Star Trek episodes out there that did such a good job of emulating the lighting and the shooting style of the original 60s series. So that was, so then having the voices kind of being not quite right really threw me off. But then again, you know, it wasn't the same people. But, you know, so they didn't necessarily pick actors that could vocalize like the other characters as much as they picked some actors that could characterize, that could do mannerisms and looks and such like the others. And, you know, there's a danger you can take that too far, and I don't think they took it. In fact, I think they were conservative enough with the way they imitated the characters that it didn't have the Saturday Night Live spoof feel like you have seen in the past. So overall, I thought that was pretty good for a fan fiction effort. This is N5HYP, back to that.
Very good. Thanks, Tom. This is KE5ICX. We are talking about Fairest of Them All. This is a sequel to the Star Trek original series Mirror, Mirror. In the alternate universe, everything takes place there, not in our universe, the one with goatees. Let's go to Brenda, WB50ZL. Your comments about characterization.
WB50ZL. Well, I was happy that they stayed pretty true to the original characters. I think I would have been upset had they tried to depart from that any. You know, they were, I don't want to say predictable, but it was pretty true to canon. And, yeah, I like that. You just wonder, though, you wonder what happens to the people that left and what the end of their story is. You kind of get yourself into kind of a mess when you start changing the future, because now it's not an alternative universe anymore, at least, or parallel, or whatever, opposite. It's on totally different lines. You wonder, are there infinite ones? I don't know. That kind of stuff makes my head hurt. But still, there's just, to me, there's nothing better in Star Trek, and this was not as good as the original, but it was pretty close. But we've really had some good comments. I just don't have a whole lot more to add. So much has already been said. I don't want to just be redundant. Get back to that. WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brenda. Next up, Carolyn, KC5OZT. Your comments on characterization.
Overall, I think it was, to me, it was pretty well done. The major ones, characters acted like you expected them to for this plot. And I was taken with the minor characters, you know, your heroes. Scotty, Chekhov, you know, and some I didn't even know their names, you know, just the guards and stuff. They were very true to the original Star Trek, seemed like to me, and it seemed like they had, well, I guess they had watched the original, but they did their job very well, and yet you might not notice it as much. And then, of course, like I said, you know, I was struck by the major characters, how well they did, and some of the minor points, you know, of their, their characters, KC5OZT.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ms. Kerwin. Next up, David, W5EVB, characterization. I think you had some comments.
Oh, most definitely. Kind of following up on your interesting treatise on this particular episode and the subject matter, to be a little bit more abstruse. Yes, that's a word. I looked it up. It's not a dessert. Abstruse. Maybe the good Kirk secretly had aspirations of converting the Federation into an evil dominating universe, and so he intentionally planted the seed in evil Spock's head to become good. You probably took that angle, I bet. I don't know. Maybe you can comment on that. Spock was okay, but not spot-on Spock. Having seen all the episodes, he expresses slightly too much emotion, notably irritation, annoyance. You know, he kind of grimaces, you'll notice, and the original Spock didn't do that. Let me reset. It's not much, but it's noticeable and departs from the Leonard Nimoy characterization. And it makes you respect the original portrayal, having to walk a tightrope of non-emotion with just the very slight occasional slip of balance towards showing a hint, just a hint of emotion when it was called for. And Leonard did an impeccable job of that. He cannot be matched. Now, the goatee was needed for evil Spock because his logical disposition might make it not immediately obvious whether he was good or evil. He was a cool operator in both universes. You sport a goatee doesn't make you evil per se. I mean, today we have a preponderance of guys wearing thick, full, color-treated beards, brown, black, rusty red, or gray, different colors, but each beard always monochrome. I'm not sure why. I mean, does it represent social, religious, cultural, subcultural solidarity, or is it just a hopefully short-lived grooming fad du jour? Or maybe there's been a mass influx of transported transposition of people between our own mirror universe? I don't know. But if you see someone you know who is now wearing a beard, you might be suspicious, especially if she just started wearing it in the past week. W5EBB.
I have to admit, I've never taken it to that level before, and you have, and now I'm going to be thinking about that moving forward. So, next, Tony, NT5TM, your comments about characterization.
Well, you know, as I really did like Eric's comment at the very beginning, it took me about 5 minutes to get used to what the heck is this? And then I really got into it, and the characters often did seem very natural for me. I thought the characterization was quite good. Although I did find his voice a little high-pitched and not quite as satisfying as the actual William Shatner's, I really thought the actor who was playing Evil Kirk did a good job of acting like an evil, tyrannical Kirk. I thought his portrayal was very effective. And well, I think possibly in line with others here, Spock was not spot on. I'm inclined to give that actor some slack. He really had the hardest part in this episode to both straddle the two universes, the emotional and non-emotional, and to be dynamic, to try to move from loyalty to the evil empire to the possibility of change, and to perhaps building something more stable and logical, and seeing that there could be more logic and chaos than in seeming order of an empire. So he had a hard part to play, so I'm inclined to give him a little bit of slack on that, because that was more difficult to do. So, like the characters, yep, despite imperfections, enjoyed them tremendously. NT5TM.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Let's see. We've got Eric, K5QDQ. You got any comments you'd like to bring up, or any comments on the comments, perhaps? Suspected he might have retired. Let's see, who did I forget? John's gone. Jay, KG5BZW, your comments on characterization.
This is KG5BZW. Yeah, I really don't. I think a lot of people have mentioned. I almost feel like I'm repeating everybody else here. Just what happens this late in the comments. Yeah, I thought Vic did a pretty good job with Kirk. I was actually really impressed. It was a good evil Kirk. It was as spot on as my imagination could handle it. I don't know that there's anybody that I would really complain about. Yeah, I've done the comments on Spock. Sure, yeah. Especially the different handling of emotion. Yeah, but I thought he was believable as Spock. They didn't take away, and it I knew he was different, but it was believable. Some of the characters, I don't. Granted, Imahara is actually, I'm sure. Well, I don't know who all knows him. He from Mythbusters, actually, so he's not really a professional actor, and he kind of probably just kind of in the know and probably was recruited partially because of that. In fact, that's part of the reason I even knew about this. I never did. I'm ashamed that I never did see it until now. But anyway, my point on him, going back to the Mirror episode, man, Sulu was especially creepy, and I don't know that Grant could have pulled it off. I thought he did. Otherwise, not knowing that, I thought he did okay, just especially since he's not nearly the actor type that some of these others are. And, of course, I don't know if anybody noticed the Michael Dorn, oh, my gosh, brain fart. He was the computer voice, and it was as much an enjoyable aspect of the. It's not really characterization as it's just kind of an enjoyable Easter egg to the thing. Honestly, I think I've said what I can say without just completely going on and on about characters and whatever, and I think I've had my say. KG5BZW.
Very good. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate your comments on characterization and ATAL. Okay, I'm going to make my comments. A couple of things. First off, I try and take notes along the way. And I found some interesting stuff here. Let me tell you my comments on the characterizations. I thought it was all well done. I thought that the Kirk character was done well. Yeah, there was a little bit of that helium sound, but I think that's part of what he does for a living. He does voices for animated series and that, so he's not going to have the same voice as William Shatner. The other thing that may come out of that, too, is the fact that they may have compressed the episode. Like most things, they run a little long. You got so much material, so you reduce the material and you find out you're still running a little long, so you go ahead and increase the speed. And that may be what happened here. I don't know. I kind of got that impression, too, when I was watching it. It seemed slightly hurried, which meant that they may have increased the speed of the episode and the way it played out. Now, on characterization, I've done amateur productions before. It's been many years, but I used to. One of the biggest problems with amateur productions is it sounds amateur, and it looks amateur. That's because all of the people who are doing the acting in amateur productions where that comes out is trying to remember their lines. And as such, there is an artificiality to it. The acting is wooden, and that all comes from the fact that you are scared to death of your audience reaction, and you're scared to death that you're going to make a mistake. And that translates on stage or film or any other methodology. What you need are actors, people who can remember their lines so well that they're second nature, and as such, they can go ahead and play with the character, create the bits of business, create all the things that have to happen. And in this case, the characterization, or at least the acting, and getting into the characters, these previously established before, looked very convincing. I liked that a lot, and it really showed, and it made the episode feel very well constructed, and it flowed very well. There's been some criticism of the Spock character. I, too, had some issue. I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but after listening tonight, I think my point of view is maybe a little different. I think the character physically does not match up with what Leonard Nimoy looked like at the time. He was a tall actor, and he was even taller than William Shatner, whether you knew that or not, because of the crazy angles that they would do to disguise the fact that Shatner was shorter than most of the rest of the cast. But Nimoy was, I think, average 6 foot,
and as such, he came off as looking 6 foot. I think this character was shorter than that, and I think that may have been one of the things that drew that less than desirable impersonation, let's say, or inhabited character of Spock. Now, this character has been reprised in the movies, these rebooted series. I can't think of his name right now. The fellow who's done it, he did a nice job. And he looks the part, and he acts the part, and he seems to be the part. We have coming up on Thursday, if you have CBS All Access, you're going to get to see another actor play Spock in Star Trek Discovery. So that should be most interesting. And by the way, he has a goatee. This was all by accident. I didn't plan this out. You can say that I did, and I can be a genius, evil genius. But in reality, that's what it is. So it should be interesting to see how that all plays out. Overall, I enjoyed it. Some little bits of business here that I wanted to mention, and I'm going to open it up to free discussion, is Facebook has something they call the art of miniatures, props, and actors, writers, and all of that on Star Trek. Somebody actually posted a picture of the Toronto Star from them taking pictures at one of the episodes. Give me a second. I'm going to look up close and I'll tell you which one. It's a bit small. I can't tell. It looks like it could be the Omega Glory, the one with the Khans and the Yangs, which were the communists and the Yankees. I don't know. It's still hard to tell. These are pictures that have never been put out before. I'll take a look at it. It just came in here less than an hour ago from the Toronto Star. And then finally the thing with Shatner, which was pretty funny. Yeah, as a Canadian actor, I lived in Detroit, and right across the river was Windsor, CBET Television, and I used to get Dominion supermarket ads off of that from Canada, and William Shatner was a regular person who did that. He would do Dominion, I think it was Dominion supermarkets. Since he is Canadian. So I thought it was kind of interesting when I heard those comments from Frank. So in conclusion, I thought the characters lived up to the characterizations that have been done. The actors lived up to the characterizations that have been done in the original series. And as everyone's mentioned before, it's very true to form. There were only a few acting mishaps, not very long, not very pronounced, and they did not take me out of the story but maybe once, and that was for about half a second. Otherwise, like everyone else, I felt that it was very natural to see these people take these roles on and do a good and convincing job. All right, this is KE5ICX. We're talking about Fairest of Them All, the Star Trek fan-created sequel to the original episode, Mirror, Mirror. I'm going to ask and see if anyone has any additional comments this evening. Now's your chance. Please give me your call sign, and I'll go in that order. Anybody has any comments they would like to bring on anything involving this TV episode, please come with your call sign.
KG5ZNJ.
KG5P.
Okay, it's got KG5ZNJ and KG5P. Anyone else?
W5EBB.
Okay, got W5EBB. Let's start at the top. Frank, KG5ZNJ, your comments.
Yeah, just in reading the credits and piecing together some info after the fact and stuff that I knew already, they did use some stuff from the actual original series in that remake. One of which is they used the actual real shuttlecraft from the original series, There was a documentary about that thing. It got lost, it got found, it got trashed over the years, and a couple found it, bought it, and restored it fully. And they went to, I think it was the set where they did the shuttle bay in the original series is in Houston, and they went to that exact location, exact place, and they used the actual real shuttlecraft from the original series, which has been perfectly restored. So that was kind of cool. They actually had some parts of the original set used in that. So that I thought that was really, really cool. And I only found that out because I had seen the documentary on the shuttle being restored, and when I saw it, I said, that's the actual shuttle. There's no way they went and made that. That's too hard to make, for just something like a fan remake. And I found out that that was the case. So I thought that was really, really, really cool. So I'm trying to think if I have anything else on it. I guess that's about it. KG5's NJ, back to net control.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Exactly right. That is the original shuttlecraft. It had been restored. I got a chance to see it. In fact, several of us got a chance to see it when we went down to Houston to go see the Apollo 17 command module, which was on tour. Houston is not its native home, or not Apollo 17, but Apollo 11. That is in Washington, D.C., but we went down to see it. And the shuttlecraft was off in the lunch area of all places. They pushed it out of the way to make room for the Apollo 11 display that they had. So it was actually pretty cool to be able to look at it really up close. One of the things I saw there, and I won't make this long, is that the pad, the touchdown pad that was in the back, is actually an upside-down landing gear, nose gear, for a tripod jet. It looks like a regular jet, so it does have some aircraft sensibilities about it. It just happens to be upside down. That is the original piece. So it was pretty cool. I was very glad to see that it had been restored. Lots of fun. Okay, next, KG5P. Mike, your comments.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. KG5P. Well, okay, you didn't have a segment on special effects, so I guess you want to wrap things up here. So I just had a couple comments. When the original Star Trek came out, which is like 66, 67, that time frame, it was all made for TV, of course. And if they had an unlimited budget, they didn't spend it on special effects. Well, special effects are kind of rudimentary back then, but still, if they did have an unlimited budget, or whatever budget they had, they spent it on acting and they spent it on script, and not on special effects. And I really appreciated that. Like, the special effects maybe no more than colored spotlights. And most of the rooms are pretty dark, or drab, I should say, but the colored spotlights were what the special effects consisted of. And this movie was in the same... It followed the same plan, which I was glad they did, because it seems like a lot of movies, especially the remakes and the retreads that come out today, and one I can think of is the retread they made of Blade Runner. They put so much in special effects that the rest of the movie was just wasted. And maybe that appeals to the current demographic of moviegoers, but it certainly didn't to me. So that was what I really liked about the special effects. Is it was done in the same spirit as the original Star Trek. So that's all I had to say. Tom, looks like you're starting to nod off, so I better get out of here too. Back to net KG5P.
No, I'm fine. I'm looking. I got a delay here, and it does look like I'm nodding off. I'm actually watching Battlestar Galactica, and the screen is down below the camera, so it does look like I'm nodding off. I'm not. But I am listening, and the special effects really are different today, and they sometimes take precedence over anything that you'd see in the 60s. You know, a room with people talking and acting and telling a story with a decent script. Oh, don't forget the music either. The music is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of television and movie music, particularly from that era. So, yeah, the dynamics have changed a little bit. Hopefully the thing is it's still about the story. That's really, really, really important. W5EVB, David, you had additional comments. Go ahead.
Yes, and I will do my best to try to make you go to sleep with my comments here. Now, looking at the quality of this, I wondered, how did they accomplish this? I mean, it was a really quality production. They had really good people working on it. The acting was good, and it was just, where did they get the money? Well, according to Wikipedia, they had 3 rounds of fundraising through Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and whatever that is, and private charitable donations, totaling around $700,000 over the course of the 11 episodes. And in early 2015, Star Trek Continues announced the acquisition of a set that they had used on Kingsland, in Kingsland, Georgia, totaling 18,500 square feet. And they own it now under their ownership. Trek Continues, Inc. rebranded the studio set as Stage 9, an homage to Soundstage at Desilu. So even though they're not for profit, there's a company involved in this, you know, and they own assets now as a result of this thing. And I mean, it's a quality run episode, but the Kingsland, Georgia location is kind of interesting. It's a city of maybe 18,000 people, chartered in 1908. Has the Enterprise sets there. It's on the East Coast, furthest southeast county of Georgia, adjacent to the northeast-most county of Florida. Its motto is City of Royal Treatment. And I suppose it could be kickstarted again for a continuation of further episodes or some other purpose. But it takes more than just money for an effort like this to succeed. You need talented, recurring cast and crew with passion and a lot of free time. You need to have N's and OKs from Paramount to allow this to even be published and shown, even with the non-commercial, no copyright, no trademark infringement disclaimers. And further, to pull in well-known established actors as special guest stars, notably Lou Ferrigno in Episode 2, Lolani, well, that's quite a feat. In short, you need to be connected and in-network in a big way. An example of a fan fiction effort that was prohibited from being shown publicly was a reshoot of the Return of the Jedi Darth Vader unmasking scene. Instead of showing Sebastian Shaw, who was in the original movie in that scene, it would be David Prowse, the guy behind the mask throughout the first 3 real Star Wars movies. David agreed to do it. They hired professional set designers, prop makers, film production crew, volunteered, and they shot it and completed it. Just about a minute of footage. But Lucasfilm denied public showing, even for free, citing copyright violation and that it was a departure from the original movie canon. It was not the way it was originally done. So this whole effort is described in the documentary I Am Your Father, which is so-so, but if you have an interest in things like this, fan fiction that didn't work because you weren't in network to allow it to happen, you know, they weren't approving it, that it's a good thing to watch. And also the kind of rivalry and feud between David Prowse and George Lucas, and maybe another reason why that wasn't allowed. But yeah, they really had to have a lot of the thumbs up from a lot of key people to pull this Star Trek Continues effort off. And they did it well, but the wheels were greased, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to make this work and to make it publicly available. But I'm glad it did. W5EBB.
Thank you, David. All great comments, and all I'll add to that is that there's always a copyright issue with any of this stuff. When it's materials that are copyrighted, such as Star Trek, which actually didn't happen for a while. After the series went off the air, there was no copyright actually done on the name or any of that stuff. And I remember seeing that there were fan-produced items that came out, and Paramount really couldn't do anything about it until they decided just before Star Trek
the motion picture came out, they started applying copyrights to all of this stuff, and then they started clamping down.
W5FC.
Now, much like what was going on between 1969, the end of the original series, and 1979, when the motion picture came out, there's a whole lot of nothing going on. Fans were keeping the series alive, conventions, all of that. In fact, it was starting to grow, and one of the reasons why in 79 that it was created as a movie, or as a TV series and then converted to a movie at that point, was because of the fans keeping the series alive through reruns and through their own initiatives. The same thing applied here when Star Trek Enterprise ended, I think it was 1996 or something. There was no, it had to be later than that. I don't remember what it was, 2000-something, 2004, I guess. Until now, fans would keep it alive, and then suddenly when Star Trek Discovery came out last year, they started cracking down again, and one of the series was, and these shows that you've seen have been suppressed. They have very limited in what they can do. Let me reset. They can now do 2 episodes at a time, 15 minutes each, on a storyline or something like that. That's it. They cannot use Star Trek in the name. They must use costumes that are generated elsewhere under the Star Trek name where they can make money. I mean, it's very repressive. So these creative shows that we've seen and are available online will go away. Now, they do not have to remove this stuff, and Star Trek Continues was a victim of that. They expected to have somewhat, I don't know, 20 episodes, and they got, 11 or 12 of them done, depending on how you count them. So it went away, and that's unfortunate because I thought that was very creative. But the other part of this, too, is that there was so much money being poured in through Kickstarter, and thanks to the Internet, $500,000, $750,000 was easy to come up with, and then bad things start to happen there, too. Not with this series, but another one whose name escapes me right now, but you'll find it online, where they were actually making money off of this, and then Paramount put their foot down and said, nope, can't do that. So it's a long and varied story, and as things start to pick up, you got to save your copyright, but at the same time, you're also killing off your fan base, too. It's a tough road to hoe, and if you care about Star Trek, which is $1 billion a year franchise, you don't want to make your fans mad at you either.
The time is 12:05 a.m.
Okay, we're on regular time right now. Does anybody have any additional comments or anything before I sit down? Don't forget, you can talk after I close down as well. Any additional comments? Come with your call sign.
KG5B, one last comment.
G5P, Mike, you got the last comment. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Tom. Well, if you remember, you were talking about Star Wars and and all the copyright stuff. I was in San Francisco when Star Wars came out, and George Lucas lived in the town San Anselmo, which was next town over from where I lived, in Fairfax. And I never met him, of course, but I wish I would have. But when he first came out with Star Wars, he had put all his money into it and borrowed a ton of money. Because he'd made American Graffiti, which was made in San Rafael, which was the town over from San Anselmo. And the interesting thing is he was deathly afraid that it would be a box office flop. Now, I don't know if this is common knowledge, but it was in the San Francisco papers and stuff at the time. And he figured that when it opened, nobody'd show up to watch it, and he'd have all these creditors coming after his throat and everything like that. Of course, it turned out that it didn't, but that might have been why he never got patents and copyrights on this stuff, is because it was a shoestring operation, and he was very highly leveraged and in debt. And I think he was actually surprised that it was successful as it was, because he was actually afraid that it would flop. So that was my comment. Back to net, KG5P.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild world when you think about it and how all that stuff would work out. And you never know with anything whether it's going to be a success or not. And now with the internet and leveraging all of this stuff, that anybody can see something and then pass it on to somebody else that passes it on to somebody else. This stuff goes viral very easily. In fact, one of our Not Ready for Prime Time is a viral thing coming up on January 26th. So let me tell you what next week is, and I'll even tell you what the movie is after that. So all this stuff is at Afterglow Movie on Facebook. Afterglow as one word, movie the second word. If you want to be on the list, and I do get folks from time to time that want to be put on the list, email list, just send an email to Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX @yahoo.com, and I will put you on the list. And I apologize, Burl, I messed you up at some point on, and got you off the list, so I created a separate list to go ahead and make sure that doesn't happen again, I hope. Next week is a pilot to a series called Pioneer 1. Pioneer 1. I think you're going to find this very, very interesting. This is from 2010. It only went one season, but the first episode is a really intriguing idea, and I'm very curious to see what you think about it. It has to do with the Soviet space program gone crazy, and it is an amateur production, but it's fairly well done. Pioneer 1 will be for next week. Then the following week, on the 26th of January, let me reset. Pass this one around because it's going to be a lot of fun. Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog from 2008. If you've not seen it, you're in for a real treat. Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog. That's on January 26th. Next week is Pioneer 1, the pilot episode, the 19th. Okay, that's it. I'm going to say goodnight, everybody. Good night, everybody. And we'll see you next week. This is KE5ICX, and I'm clear. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Tom, we had fun. KG5P.
I enjoyed it too. I was surprised how good this episode actually held up. I really enjoy it. I actually watched The White Iris. It was force feed from YouTube, which was a next episode, one that I've only seen once, and I actually really liked it. So I guess I'm going to go back and watch the whole series again. It was pretty well done. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give it about a 9. That's pretty good if you're going to give the professional productions, say, a 10.
That again?
I watched YouTube. It's on YouTube, so it will force feed you another episode or another thing on YouTube based on what you just saw. So it force fed the Star Trek Continues The White Iris as the next episode. And I'd only seen it once, and it was several years ago, and I watched it again for the first time, and I thought, you know what? This series is pretty good. So I'll probably go back and watch all the episodes. It's quite entertaining.
W5FC.
Okay, I got that down here. I'll check it out. I've been watching Tubby TV. I don't know. It's one of the movie channels that's out there. It's not a bad channel.